The conference room on the 14th floor of a major record label in Los Angeles was cold. Not just temperature cold, though the air conditioning was blasting, but atmospherically cold. The kind of cold that happens when powerful people have already made up their minds and are just going through the motions of a meeting. It was March 1998, and Cher sat at one end of a long glass table, wearing sunglasses indoors, flanked by her manager and her A&R representative. Across from her sat 5 executives from the label, all men, all younger than her, all wearing expensive suits that suggested they knew exactly how important they were. Cher was 51 years old. She'd been famous for over 30 years. She'd survived the death of Sonny, multiple career reinventions, an Oscar win, and more comebacks than most artists got careers. She'd been written off as over at least a dozen times and had proven everyone wrong every single time. But this time felt different. This time, she was pitching a pop song, a dance song, a song with a vocoder effect that nobody had really used prominently in pop music before. A song that sounded nothing like anything on the radio. A song that even her own team thought was risky. The song was called Believe. And the executive sitting directly across from her, let's call him Michael Preston, 38 years old, Stanford MBA, 3 years running the pop division, was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. Cher's manager had set up this meeting after months of negotiations. The label wanted Cher. She was a legend. She had name recognition. She could sell records based on her name alone. But they wanted her to do Cher music, adult contemporary, maybe some rock ballads, songs for the over 40 crowd who bought CDs at Target, safe, predictable, age-appropriate. Cher had other ideas. "I want to play you something," Cher said, pulling out a CD from her bag. Michael Preston leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, the posture of someone who's already decided the answer is no but wants to appear thoughtful. Cher's A&R rep put the CD in the player. The song started. Electronic. Pulsing. That distinctive vocoder effect on Cher's voice, creating that stuttering robotic quality that would later be called the Cher effect and revolutionize pop music. "Do you believe in life after love?" For 4 minutes, the executives listened. Some tapped pens, some checked watches. Michael Preston's expression didn't change at all. When the song ended, silence. Finally, Michael spoke. "Cher, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm being honest because I respect you too much to blow smoke." Cher took off her sunglasses, looked at him directly. "This song is interesting," Michael continued, choosing his words carefully. "The production is very current, very dance club, very electronic." "That's the point," Cher said. "Right, and therein lies the problem." Michael leaned forward. "Cher, you're 51 years old." 52 in May, Cher corrected. "Exactly. You're about to be 52. And this song, this is a song for 25-year-olds. This is a song for clubs, for teenagers, for people who dance until 3 a.m. and don't worry about their backs." Someone at the table snickered. Cher didn't react. "Pop music is a young person's game," Michael continued, warming to his theme now, clearly thinking he was delivering tough love wisdom. "The audience for this kind of music wants to see themselves. They want artists they can relate to. And I'm sorry, but a 52-year-old woman singing dance music, it just doesn't make sense." "Madonna is 39, Cher pointed out. "Right, and even Madonna is pushing it. In another few years, she'll need to transition to more mature material. That's just how the industry works." Cher sat very still. Her manager shifted uncomfortably. Her A&R rep looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "What do you suggest?" Cher asked, her voice calm. "Adult contemporary, ballads, maybe some soft rock. Look at what Tina Turner did. She aged gracefully, found her lane. We'd love to make a record with you, Cher, but a record that makes sense for who you are now, not who you were in the 70s. "Who I am now," Cher repeated. "Exactly." Embrace where you are in life. There's dignity in that. There's a market for mature artists making mature music. Cher put her sunglasses back on. So you're passing on the song. We're passing on this direction, Michael corrected. Come back to us with age-appropriate material and we'll absolutely— Age-appropriate, Cher interrupted. That's an interesting phrase. She stood up. Her manager scrambled to gather papers. Michael, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to remember this conversation. Michael smiled indulgently. Of course. You just passed on the biggest hit of 1998, maybe the biggest hit of the decade, and you passed on it because you think I'm too old to make pop music. Cher, I understand you're disappointed. I'm not disappointed. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. I'm going to take this song to another label. They're going to release it. It's going to be #1 in every country that has a radio. And when that happens, you're going to remember this meeting. You're going to remember that you thought age mattered more than the song. She picked up her bag. Watch me, she said. And she walked out. 3 weeks later, Cher signed with Warner Brothers Records. They listened to Believe. They didn't care that Cher was 52. They cared that the song was incredible. This vocoder thing, one executive said, is this going to sound dated? Maybe, Cher's producer said, or maybe it's going to start a trend. They decided to risk it. October 1998. Believe was released. Within 2 weeks, it was #1 in the UK. Within a month, it was climbing charts worldwide. By December, it was the biggest song on the planet. The Cher effect, that vocoder, auto-tune sound that Michael Preston had thought was too young, too trendy, too risky, became the most copied effect in pop music. Every pop song for the next 5 years would try to recreate it. The song sold over 10 million copies worldwide. It became the best-selling single by a female artist in UK history. It won a Grammy. It made Cher the oldest female artist to have a #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. And Michael Preston, the executive who'd told Cher she was too old for pop music, he watched all of this happen from his office at the label that had passed on the song. The music industry is small, everyone knows everyone, and everyone talks. Within weeks of Believe becoming a phenomenon, the story leaked. Cher pitched Believe to label name, and they passed because they said she was too old. At first, the label tried to spin it. Creative differences, scheduling conflicts. We're thrilled for Cher's success. But too many people had been in that meeting. Too many assistants had heard the conversation. The truth came out. Michael Preston tried to defend himself. It wasn't about age. It was about finding the right fit for the artist. But the receipts didn't lie. He'd literally said, "You're 51 years old. Pop music is for 25-year-olds. By January 1999, as Believe was dominating every chart in the world, Michael Preston was called into his boss's office. "We need to talk about the Cher situation." "Look, I stand by my decision. At the time, based on the information I had, you passed on the biggest hit of the year. Nobody could have predicted—" Yes, they could. Warner Brothers predicted it. They signed her. They released it. They made tens of millions of dollars. We made nothing. One song doesn't— It's not about one song, Michael. It's about judgment. You told Cher she was too old for pop music. She's 52 and has the #1 song in the world. What does that say about your understanding of the market? Michael tried to salvage it. "I still think long-term artists need to age appropriately." "Michael, the music industry is changing. The rules you learned at Stanford don't apply anymore. Cher just proved that, and you missed it." By March 1999, Michael Preston was out. The label called it a restructuring. Michael called it a firing. Both were right. When Cher heard that Michael Preston had been fired, she was asked for comment. Her response was classic Cher. "I didn't get him fired. He got himself fired. I just sang a song." But in a longer interview later that year, she expanded. "Look, I understand why he thought what he thought. The music industry has always been ageist, especially toward women. Madonna gets questioned. Tina gets questioned. Every woman over 40 in this business gets told to age gracefully and find your lane. But here's what they don't understand. Age is just a number. What matters is whether you're still relevant, still creating, still pushing boundaries. That executive looked at me and saw a 52-year-old woman. He couldn't imagine that a 52-year-old woman could make a song that teenagers would dance to. He couldn't imagine that age and innovation aren't mutually exclusive. So he passed. And honestly, I'm glad he did. Because if he'd signed me, he would have tried to control the song. He would have wanted to make it more age-appropriate. He would have ruined it. Sometimes rejection is protection. Believe didn't just save Cher's career, it revolutionized pop music. The auto-tune effect that producers Mark Taylor and Brian Rawling had created for Cher's voice became the most influential production technique of the next 2 decades. T-Pain built his career on it. Every pop song in the 2000s used some version of it. But more importantly, Believe proved something the industry had denied, that age was irrelevant if the song was good enough. After Believe, the conversation changed. Madonna kept making pop music well into her 50s and 60s. Jennifer Lopez had her biggest hits in her 40s. Beyoncé's most acclaimed work came after 30. The idea that women had to age out of pop music began to crack. And every time an executive tried to tell a female artist she was too old, someone brought up Cher. Remember when they told Cher she was too old for pop music? And then Believe became one of the biggest songs of all time? Michael Preston never fully recovered from the Cher incident, as it became known in the industry. He got other jobs, smaller labels, consulting gigs. But the shadow of having passed on Believe followed him everywhere. In a rare 2018 interview, 20 years after the fact, Preston finally addressed it directly. I was wrong. I'll say it plainly, I was wrong. I looked at Cher and I saw her age before I heard her song. I let demographics and marketing data override what should have been obvious. The song was incredible. I thought I was being realistic about the market. I thought I was protecting the label from a risky investment. What I was actually doing was letting my own biases limit my imagination. Cher didn't just prove me wrong about that one song. She proved me wrong about the entire premise. Age doesn't determine relevance. Talent and innovation do. I cost my label millions of dollars. I probably cost myself my career. But more than that, I almost cost the world a song that ended up meaning something to millions of people. That's the real loss, not the money, not my job. The fact that if I'd had my way, Believe might never have been released. Cher was right. I should have watched her, and I did. I watched her become the biggest artist in the world at 52. I just wish I'd been part of it. In 2023, 25 years after Believe, Cher was asked about the song's legacy. You know what's funny? That executive who told me I was too old, he thought he was delivering hard truth. He thought he was being honest and realistic. But he wasn't being realistic. He was being limited. He couldn't imagine a world where a 52-year-old woman could have the biggest song in the world because he'd never seen it before. And because he'd never seen it, he assumed it was impossible. That's the problem with the music industry, with Hollywood, with any creative industry. People mistake this is how it's always been for this is how it has to be. Believe didn't succeed because I was young. It succeeded because it was a great song with innovative production that came out at exactly the right time. My age didn't hurt it. If anything, my age helped it. Because I'd been through enough in my life to sell that song with real emotion. That's not something a 25-year-old could have done. So when people ask me about ageism in the industry, I always tell them, don't let anyone tell you you're too old to create. The only thing that makes you too old is when you stop trying new things. And I'm 77 now. I'm still trying new things, still creating, still proving that age is just a number. That executive learned that the hard way. But I'm glad he did, because his loss was my gain. And more importantly, it was the world's gain. Believe exists because someone told me I couldn't do it, and I said, watch me. The story of Cher and Believe reminds us that the biggest breakthroughs often come when we refuse to accept limitations others place on us. Michael Preston looked at a 52-year-old woman and saw someone past her prime. Cher looked in the mirror and saw someone just getting started. Preston thought age determined relevance. Cher proved that innovation determines relevance. Preston protected his label from risk. Cher embraced risk and created one of the biggest songs in music history. And 25 years later, Believe is still played, still celebrated, still influencing music. While Michael Preston is remembered, if he's remembered at all, as the executive who was too scared to bet on a 52-year-old woman with a revolutionary song. Sometimes the biggest mistake you can make is underestimating someone because of their age. And sometimes the best revenge is proving that age was never the limitation. Fear was. If this story moved you, remember, you're never too old to reinvent yourself, never too old to try something new, never too old to prove the doubters wrong. Share this with someone who needs to hear that age is just a number and talent is timeless.